It might be a while. He might have gotten lost. We'll start at 10:15, so we'll do that.
No, it's determinist.
Okay. Um, hey,
Hi.
are you visiting town?
Yeah. Thank you.
Just give me a whole new thing. All right, we'll go ahead and start. 10:15, it's a good time to start. So, morning guys, hello, some new faces here. Hi, how's it going? And also, you've been here before?
No.
No? Okay, so yeah, welcome. Every Saturday we run this, same time, roughly the same place. And we just check up, we stay up to date on the news for the week. That's the concept of this meeting. And then a whole bunch of discussions that show up. And we sort of just let things go naturally. I'm just double checking that the stream is fine. So, what happened in news this week? Let me skip all this. Okay. So did anyone watch the Claude Code? What was it, like a San Francisco event? What was it called? Code with Claude. Did anyone who saw that? Like half of you guys? And so that event happened this week, and it was sort of like Anthropic coming out and saying, here's a whole bunch of. They didn't show anything new, right? So I think all they did was they showcased Claude and how to use it, and how to use different parts of their ecosystem. I think they were trying to draw attention to some of the newer pieces of their ecosystem, and one of those newer pieces is managed agents. And so Jordan, I know you talk about this a lot, where you think the AI companies are distributing their AI, the ability to use the model is now going to probably be something that's done through some interface. So you can't access the model, let's say Mythos, from Claude Code CLI, right? And so we might have, I'm not saying this is what's happening, but it seems like there's this world where, you could use Mythos, but only through, what was one of the things? It's like the security feature with Claude or Codex's Spud, for example. There's like this only way to access it is through the web UI. Anyways, the point is that when Claude went out and talked this week, I felt like I was seeing more of that direction. So the things that you're talking about, Jordan, I'm like, well, that seems like what they're doing more and more. And so you might actually be right, because managed agents is like basically almost entirely this whole concept of your harness is now in the cloud. You don't really get to directly steer it like you would Claude Code CLI, and the power is sort of the compute and the interface rather is on the web. It's a different paradigm from.
But managed agents still API.
It's still API, yeah.
So they're just running the infra. But I think like Mythos is available, but it's only available on the web. Like you don't have direct access locally.
And you can't say like, I want to use the Mythos model and have it do tool use on my computer,
Yeah.
Like they're not allowing that. It's more like you want to use Mythos model, give us your GitHub link, and then we'll
Yeah.
scan your repo for you and we'll tell you issues. But you'll
And-
never get to access the model. You'll never see what tools it called, what sequence of events it went through. It's all invisible to your eyes.
And
And
same with the codex security stuff. That's
Same,
all
yeah,
web.
yeah.
That's not on your computer. So,
yeah, and it's so you get like 5 free scans a month or something now. So the Claude managed agents sort of reminds me of that because it's putting more of the interface on like outside of your computer. So it's an interesting development. So anyways, this week they did this Claude event. Dario came out and spoke. Boris came out and spoke. Different people, the Claude team came out and spoke. Managed agents was a big part of it. There are some interesting things there, but I don't. Does anyone use the API from Anthropic, like at work? Just one. So like, but then most of this thing right here, I might just skip over it. Actually, I'm just curious to hear your thought on the dreaming thing.
Yeah.
Because they now introduced this dreaming concept, but you can once again you can only use it through this web interface. You can't pull it into your Claude CLI.
You can't pull it into the CLI, but you can pull it in. You can use it through the SDK.
okay.
No,
Which
you don't have to
SDK?
use it through them.
You use it through the
You can
not the
you
agents SDK, but the API
can,
SDK.
the agents SDK. You can. You have
Streaming?
full, yeah, you have full access to using it as long as you have access. You have to have access to the Dream model, which most people don't have.
So for a while, I had this activated on my code locally, like just before the leap, you can turn on dreaming in memory settings on some of my code
Oh,
codes.
that's right.
It's like, it wasn't in all of them, but it was on some of my dev containers.
Yeah.
It works. It's not like revolutionary. It's basically just running a prompt that's public and you can copy and paste and do it yourself against the JSON files in your .claude directory.
Yeah, the
and
JSON
memory
transcripts.
folder.
I think
It's just
another.
saying, like, review the recent last 4 things you did with Haiku model
Yeah.
and update this index.
I think another main part of even like the managed agents in general, dreaming managed agents, all this stuff like you're saying that they're doing like the security stuff using Mythos. I think it has a lot more to do with like Mythos is really, really expensive for them to run, right? And in their environment, all these tools run more efficiently because they control the entire
Stack.
stack of the environment. So I think, yeah, so I think what they're doing is they're for certain things, they're trying to actually find ways to save money for consumers and themselves in the amount of stuff that it takes. That said, like a lot of it's going to be available. Like Boris basically said that Mythos is coming. It'll just be a little stripped down, but Opus 5 will be Mythos.
Oh wow. Holy
Um,
crap.
yeah,
Did he say that?
yeah, he said that.
We've seen this cycle a year ago too. Like, O1 was this latest model that was only limited to certain people and in certain workflows and was super, super expensive. And then DeepSeek came out with a new thing and we all jumped to that instead.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, then O3 was like 90% price reduction from O1. O1 was like unbelievably expensive.
But they use these frontier models to like distill, like if you get a new opus, it's gonna be based off Mythos to some degree. My like opus becomes a distillation of Mythos, just like Haiku is a distillation of opus.
Right.
Like the knowledge works its way down.
How much of Mythos is actually Haiku versus
I think it's just a really expensive.
yeah.
It's really expensive to run. It's like it's a trillion parameters. It's a terabyte of memory. You're just, you know, make me a to-do list.
Maybe, I'm not sure I understood. What do you mean when you say it will be running on there? So everything is running there, right? Right now, I mean the
Yeah.
inferences, even with normal models, I'm not seeing.
Yeah.
what's
Yeah,
running.
no, it's a good question. What I mean is like you could grab Opus 4.7 and talk to it directly and have it use tools on your computer. You can do that today, right? Like with Cloud Code CLI. Say, hey, Opus, do so and so. But you can't grab Mythos and do that. And so the talk or the topic was like, we might get access to these bigger models, but through these constrained interfaces. And that might be the only way we get access to it, or we might increasingly see that more and more.
What is this restricted interface?
So for example, it's like you want to use Mythos to check for 0 days in your code. You could do that. I think you can do it today if you have a team account.
Enterprise.
Or enterprise. If you have an enterprise account, you can do it today. There's a button like somewhere on the Anthropic interface on the website that's like put your GitHub link here and we'll scan that shit. But you sort of give it away and you don't know what happens. Like you can't see the tool calls against it. You can't see the model, how it's reasoning against it. You can't see the log. It just gives you a bunch of results back, right? So it's like hidden away from you. Like you're just getting the output, which is a lot different from if I pull Opus to my computer. I'm like, let's do some 0-day searching, and you can talk with the model and come up with a plan. Similar to like, so you have like Ultra Review, Ultra Plan, and Security. These are now these three. It's like you can access more compute. Who knows what models on the other side? We have no idea. You can use these features from Anthropic, but they're just constrained interfaces.
And is it because if I see the log, I can manipulate the model, or?
Well, this is all speculation from here, right? It's like, is it because it's too expensive? Maybe it's too strong. We're too scared of giving it to people, and this is like the way to give it to people. But we can be sure about how they're going to use it because you can only use it in so and so way. Speculation, though. I don't know.
Maybe also against reverse engineering, because I can't remember who said it, but like 2-3 weeks ago, someone said was a researcher that said you can do the same thing that Mythos can do with like models that exist right now.
Yeah.
It's just
Oh
about
yeah, Common
the
Core
technique.
said that.
So maybe they want to protect themselves against that. Like they don't want you to know what exactly they're doing, because then the unique selling point is kind of gone, because people will reverse engineer and build their own thing that works pretty much as good as that.
Or maybe it's not so secret anymore, and you find out that the results are exactly the same as a cheaper model.
Yeah,
The security analysts were saying, a model from 3 years ago is also finding 0-day bugs that Mythos is advertising that they can do.
Right.
And so they're trying. So I'm always a little bit. I take what the CEO of Anthropic says with a grain of salt, because
Yeah.
a lot of it's being pushed towards IPO, and so he's trying to get his pump up the valuation as much as possible. So there's always kernels of truth in what he's saying, but there's also things that are hyperbole to just boost things up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he said this year all jobs would be gone, and
Yeah, you said that last year too.
last year too. So there's that.
He also said GPT-2 would destroy the world. Release it.
Yeah.
With 8K of context, keep in mind.
If people can't see how something works, they always assume it's better.
It's more valuable when
Yeah.
it's hidden in a black box.
Yeah.
Perception.
I remember that first week when all the Mythos rage was out. There was there was one person who's like, hey, I found the same exact bugs with but I use a couple of small models
Yeah.
and I was able to find them. So there's nothing really crazy here. But I think the Mythos was about the ease at which you find them. You're not going to write like a 10-page prompt. It's like a couple sentences. I actually have no idea. I've never used it. No.
It's probably easier to find a problem.
I actually think releasing the security models behind the WebGate is okay for now, because you want the ability for people to scan for these bugs before they really release models that are able to find them really easily. One of the Codex security one will give you proof of concept exploits, but it looks like they put bugs in them, so they don't really work on purpose. But you can ask the model to help explain it for you for mitigations.
Yeah.
And then it will tell you oh yeah, if this got changed, it would work. So like, giving people access to these things early so they can get prepared. Like, granted, on one of our code bases, it found a bunch of false positives, but like a lot of legitimate bugs that should be fixed. And it's better if we can go and do that now,
Yeah.
even if there's like a 1 or 2 month buffer, before that really gets released into the wild and starts fucking people up.
It'd be cool if they just implemented it into GitHub and use the button to get rid of where you're just like scan.
That's
Spend a couple $1 million, but maybe save
so in
multiple software.
so in the Codex more advanced plans, that's exactly what they do.
Yeah.
You add your code base, they give you 5 security scans, you press scan. I just played with it last week. And yeah, it came back with like 100 bugs. You know? So like of varying degrees of critical, high, medium, low, informational. And it tries to find things from you can prompt it. You prompt it what you want the scans to look for, what you're worried about, and it comes back with those.
I haven't used that yet for Codex, but I'll test it. I have my own app that I can.
It's worth playing with. You get some free scans. Pro tip is like if you want to scan anything, just fork any project into your GitHub, and now you're the owner and you can run it. That's what I did. But the point is, anybody's going to be able to do this. So you need to be prepared, especially if you're running a code base that is public.
Question about it from rather than from the security point of view. Because I do a lot of vibe coding across bigger systems, you end up with just architectural inconsistency, which isn't necessarily a security problem. From the prompt, the way you would prompt it, could you ask for it to look through it all from
So-
architectural?
So I only did the Codex one. The Codex one will do up to 200. It reviews every single commit for the last 2 years.
Okay.
So up to 200,000 commits, I think they say. And the way they were doing it with Mythos is they talk about the harness they built, Daniel, which was they check every file individually to like seed some entropy in a check, right? They're like, find a bug in this file, and then it'll go through it, and then they'll find a bug in this file, right? And they just kept doing that. So I think the way Codex is doing it is like, let's pull in every commit and look for a bug and explore from there, right? As a way to like seed investigation. The cool thing with the Codex security one is as you continue to commit, it will keep scanning all your new commits that come in. So you can just use it for bug checking, which is nice.
Do you have any control over the, can you prompt that like the security check process?
Yeah, I used kind of their defaults because I didn't really care. I was just like, what does this do? So I kind of put in their defaults with like some minor things. The prompts are quite small, like a sentence each, and you get like 3 sentences, and you're
Yeah, like 3, like while you edit, just fix everything, all of the, or rewrite the whole architecture while you're doing this.
no, it's like security specific
I
scan.
have coded in that.
Yeah, it's like, what are you looking for? What is this project about? What are the endpoints you're worried about? So you give it some hints on like what to look for.
Yeah, okay.
And then it just comes back and gives you like a list of things. When you click on it, it will originally do the scans, and then it will create patches and stuff for you as well, right? And it has really nice web interface where it's like, this is where the problem is in the chunks of code. It's worth playing with if you have a Codex account. Just set it up to one of your repos and see what happens. It takes minimal effort.
What's in the web interface? What did you show you?
Web interface comes back with like all the problems it found in a giant like list, and you can click on them, and then it's like a contextual view, not a prompt, like a
Not text, it's just
report.
text.
Yeah, it's like a web report.
Alright.
Here's the commit. Here's the bugs. I think. Here's the snippets of code with like comments on like why I think it's wrong. It gives you proof of concept code because it'll spin up your repo. One of the things to make sure before you do the scan is make sure your repo properly boots in their web environment. Like they have a Docker. Make sure it boots and runs. I didn't do that first because I wasn't paying attention. So it'll boot it up and then go and reflect against all the commits that came in over the last 2 years.
What's the name of the feature?
I think they just call it security.
But you need a $100 subscription.
I think you need $100 or
Because
$200.
we tried it last night. You have the $100, right?
200.
200. I only have the 20, and for me it was not available.
I don't have any.
Like you need to connect to GitHub first, that's for sure. Otherwise you don't even get the web version of Codex. And then there should be a security tab on the upper right corner.
This one? So if you go to
Yeah,
Codex.
yeah, this one. And on the $20 plan, I don't have the security up there. Yeah,
You don't get much for $20.
yeah.
I had to agree to whatever it said. I didn't read it. There you go.
The part where it says that you donate all your code.
Yeah, I'm sure. The project I ran it was open source, so it doesn't really matter. And those are your 3 inputs. Are there any attack vectors you're concerned about? I kind of just did the exact same thing minus LLM prompt injection because it's not relevant. Parts of the application to focus on, and then like, what is this thing about?
So you're saying put your competitor's thing in here,
Yeah,
and then
yeah. Go nuts. But like, if your project is using an open source library that is really dependent on,
oh yeah,
like say you're using like BetterAuth or something.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was something a few weeks ago. I think it was a pip install, or brew, where it was it pulls from different repositories during pip, and there was one of the smaller libraries that got an update that was slightly malicious or something, but the larger libraries swallowed it up and it was packaged and
Yeah.
installed in a bunch of servers.
So that's
Maybe
a lot
you
with
guys-
Axios. Every single week actually we've had some library with supply chain attack. Yeah, that's been happening.
And just the
a lot.
install is enough to have your computer infected. You don't even have to run the app that
Yeah.
uses the part of the library. Just the pip install. That's it. All it has to do. And then your system is. Those are scary.
Yeah. Well, we saw a few class of these actually. A few of these. It wasn't just an isolated incident. There was a couple, from what I remember.
And do we see the amount of damage that is happening, like economically? Is it growing? Or
I don't think we're there yet.
That would be interesting. Though.
I haven't tracked it. I don't know.
I thought they did find though there's a number of bugs increasing. Yeah. But they've also found more commits, more than ever.
yeah, because there are scam compounds here nearby. I think that's a perfect business for them.
It's interesting about I didn't think about this, about if you're gonna have like 100 times more commits than you ever had before, what's the relationship with the security vulnerabilities that show up with that? It would be interesting to know if it's like not too different from pre-AI, because then it would be a case for like, hey, AI is actually good.
Well, but you could have the AI inspecting the commits, right, as you make them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I assume that people know this already, but I can't tell. Mark Andreessen has been saying over and over that all of these vulnerabilities have existed for decades, and at the end of this phase that we're in now, we're going to have secure software for the first time in human history. So like the end of the middle of the story may be very bad, but the end of the story is like amazing, because you do eventually run out of exploits. It's not like measured in infinity. And they've been there already, and AI is going to ultimately make it so that like insecure software doesn't even really exist as a thing anymore.
That would require that all the white coders have access to the fancy enterprise.
Yeah, they will.
They won't, because it's too expensive.
Well,
Eventually.
but do you realize that people said like GPT 3.5 was like, eventually these things diffuse.
Mozilla's saying the same thing too. Mozilla's saying like we've had access to Mythos and we've found 400 bugs in April, which is more than we found ever before.
Oh,
Yeah.
And we're actually solving these problems. Another thing they said that was interesting was that the patches that Mythos is writing is not good enough. They're having to write their own patches. But any bug class that they can think of, it can automate finding.
Yeah.
Very happy with it.
Yeah, but how much did it cost? They never said that.
They get it for free probably.
Yeah, but how much did it cost? Like every white coder wants to do the same thing, because the amount of vibe coders is also growing with the advances of the LLMs, right? The easier it gets.
But these are, this is not, these are two different issues. Like the real issue when he's talking about spam compounds is not your little personal SaaS or whatever. It's like Windows and Linux and, you know, things of this nature. So if those things all get patched for the first time in history, that takes care of like 99.999%. And if little things get hacked, I mean, you know, sure, maybe.
Price the album today, but it's for right now not that expensive. And there's a supply crunch on the supply side, but wait enough years and Elon's gonna have his data center space, and then everybody's gonna have their own private orbital space, and then 10 years something like that. So yeah, eventually.
But it's been said multiple times when all the CPU manufacturers said, oh, we have security enclaves now with encryption in our chips. No one can hack that. Yeah. 5 years later it was hacked. And you could throw away your CPUs or have to apply like the Spectre thing, right? You have to apply a patch that drops your performance by 30% just to mitigate that.
Those features that humans wouldn't, they created the
AI can do it better. AI can design better chips and encryption and hardware security.
Yes.
Nah.
It can eventually.
Nah.
But we're not talking about scaling intelligence. We're talking about scaling like dumb checks. You know, this is about like what are the bug classes, and can we have 1,000 monkeys look for each bug class? We've never been able to scale dumb monkeys before. You know?
But now you can also scale the attack vector, and it's always been like this in history.
And that's the thing about AI, the way they train these models on the data. It's have you guys heard about like collapsing towards the middle, or collapsing towards the mean?
Yeah, what does it mean?
Well, essentially, so you have a pool of data, right? That's all fed into the training data, and so whatever is the most popular is what tends to get referenced a lot, and whatever's on the tails tends to get chopped.
Like on a bell curve?
Like on a bell curve, so you can imagine like the middle 45 or 80%. That's what most people are using, and that's what ChatGPT and Claude and stuff tends to really pull their information from. And it gets worse when you do synthetic data, because they say the bell curve starts chopping the tails even more narrow. That starts making the bell curve more tall, so it makes the popular data even more popular. So what this means is that if it's already good at finding different ways of attacks from previous histories of attacks, it just means that a hacker has to be clever to do something that's on the tails, something that's not popular in the bell curve.
That's progress. So we've always had that bottleneck with human working this stuff.
That's the thing. So that's why it's great that we can have AI can lift up 1,000 monkeys, as you mentioned, several levels more than before. That's amazing. As long as a hacker can think on their own and be clever and creative, and that creativity is not in the training data, they can keep advancing as well.
But at least that brings it back out to state actors or really advanced security firms. At the moment, any script kiddie can do it, and so you at least get rid of the plethora of people doing it.
Yeah, at least the basic stuff should be not available.
Just a new era of script kiddies. If you've been in the script kiddie community, they can do a lot. They're just not targeting you. You know,
Script what?
script kiddies, like just people downloading exploits that don't necessarily know how to write them. Yeah, copy paste.
Just using
Yeah,
some
except for the fact that all of that knowledge that's out there for people to download can now be made available to the vibe coders, not through them using it, but through the fact that it's just being dealt with in CI or as any model. If they're using a model in someone's harness, like Cursor or Replit or whatever, they can build in all those checks and balances along the way. So.
Before we move on, the Codex security thing doesn't count towards your token budget either.
Really? Oh.
Yeah. So
But it
I
is
don't think
limited
so.
in
keep scanning. It will scan new
Okay,
commits.
so it's like 5 projects.
5 projects.
Well, that's
yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So like it's a nice freebie right now. You should take advantage of it if you can.
That's lovely. Can you turn it off for one of the projects you turn it on or a different project?
I've only done it for one,
Okay.
so I couldn't tell you. I'm not sure if it's 5 for the life of your account or 5 per month. I'm thinking 5 for the life
Yeah.
of your account.
The wording on it was like, you get to use it 5 times, and,
Yeah.
and then you're done.
You gotta pay after that.
Yeah.
That's what they're moving towards.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I feel like the 5 previews might not exist forever, so
Certainly, yeah.
now's the time.
We saw like review from Anthropic was what was it $20 a pop?
It makes sense.
$25
Like
a pop, I think.
what I did was worth $20. You know, it took like a day to run.
Oh, it's worth way more than that.
Yeah.
It's worth mentioning too that there are like tens at least of AI-based source code scan products out there. Like Anthropic and GPT are offering one that might be the best, but it might also just be competing with stuff that's already out there.
Could be. Yeah, could be. All right, I'm gonna move us from security because then we'll get trapped forever. What else we got? Chrome agents in background tabs. Oh, so news. By the way, I think we're gonna like try to cover harness stuff. So I think this is a harness thing, and let me just. All right, so what are we doing here? A normal prompt saying. I don't know. I don't think so because what is happening here? This is so strange. So review the last week of Codex. Summarize user feedback, sentiment of recent launches and key user issues in a spreadsheet. And then it goes and uses
It's open there.
But it's using like normal Chrome right here.
Do you think it's just to like show the user who's not familiar with coding that like it's like, oh, I'm reading your Google spreadsheet, but on the back it's clicking tabs on the front end, but in the back it's just reading the CSV.
I don't know. I thought
Like, look at these two work. Yeah. And then it's like, yeah, go fuck yourself.
You could read the I button in the tab too.
Yeah.
Oh wait, so this is what it was. There's a Chrome extension. It's a similar thing to Anthropic. This thing right here.
Yeah.
So now there's a Codex one. But I'll have to put it there.
And how do you use, because the way the reason why I use Chrome extension is sometimes the login and I can pay that. So yeah, it is. I didn't find any other way. If something is behind login, I use login extension, and maybe I heard that from OpenAI it's just a bit faster.
this, it's just giving me, so I just gave it, it go to it with info, and it's asking me to log in.
It's Playwright?
That's not clear, right? This is with the Chrome extension.
Yeah, that's what I use.
The difference here is that you can use multiple tabs in your browser.
It's just
Open up different tabs and then do something there.
Yeah.
Like if you had to have some sort of signing tab, you pop that out and then you use that. It knows where it came from. That doesn't really work with the existing.
So in Anthropic's thing, you can only manage one tab.
Painfully crawl the screens at a time, the whole
Yeah.
thing.
No, I
But
think
this
it's
one,
fine.
You get many tabs, tab group.
that group, can
Yeah,
you, but can you like manage them, does it understand the connects between tabs, like multiple tabs?
In its group.
Does it-
It's kind of a security feature, like these are your tabs, these are Anthropic's tabs. That's what I,
They showed in the
Right.
launch video, like different tabs playing a multiplayer game together, so they can definitely interact
With the core.
between tabs.
That was with Codex.
Yeah, that video just came out like last night.
Yeah, so the Codex seems to be able to do that, but I think the existing other ones, like Playwright and Claude, they haven't been able to do something.
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's
As far as I know. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like single tab only. It's like if you try to run two or more, they sort of bump into each other. That's what I've seen.
Yeah.
so same thing with Playwright. So if you're using, I have this problem with Playwright, is like you'll get a session clobbering.
Right,
so,
right.
So you need to, there's like a -s session tag. So if I'm doing a bunch of things on the website, unless you set the session per Playwright thing, they'll clobber each other. And so if you have multiple runs running at the same time, because when I'm doing Playwright, I'm usually testing a bunch of things at once,
Right.
and it'll clobber the session. So you need to split them up, like
Have
what
to.
you consider an independent run to be.
Right.
Uh,
Then you get the behavior of I can manage multiple.
Yeah, Playwright instances at the same time, but out of the box,
Right.
it won't be smart enough. In the Anthropic talk, they had two girls talking, and they were talking about not using their extension, using Playwright to test. That's what they use. Why would they do that? But they said they're using interactive mode in Playwright, which I've never heard of, but supposedly you can work with the LLM, and if you click something, it will like record it. I've never used that.
Oh, I didn't even know that existed.
I didn't know it existed either. So like, in Playwright, there's like headless and headed mode. Headed mode, the browser pops up and you can see what it's doing. Headless mode, you don't see anything. But there's interactive mode, which maybe you can go and click, and it will record what you're clicking. So if you want to replay that, I don't know. That's my assumption. So
I think what we're seeing here is not really for engineers, it's more, they're situating codecs for everybody. So for the person that needs to have two tabs open, copy data from one Excel form of some other data, it makes it more efficient for them. Plus, for us engineers, we'll always figure out a different way, we always have a different method. But as we saw last week, Codex is implementing more of this like non-engineering kind of stuff, Google Sheets
Oh, right.
and all that stuff, so.
Yeah, I
That's
agree
my
with that. Yeah, totally. Sam Altman said that he just had an interview a few days ago, I think, that now Codex is the main way he interacts with his computer, and that's like the direction they're going in. And I agree specifically for non-technical people that like just the way now compared to 15 years ago, a non-technical person, the first thing they open is their web browser. I think their goal is that the first thing they open is Codex.
Yeah. Yeah, do it all in Codex. Manage everything in Codex. It's so much better to have a managed agent, or not a managed agent, but an agent that uses the file system and has all these tools. It's like GPT is so weak in comparison.
Also, you burn the Codex token so they can get
Yeah.
GPT plan for chat.
So what else did we have? I think Gold came out last week, right? I don't think it came out this week,
Yeah, that was last week.
but we didn't talk about it.
Is it working for anybody? I tried it, it doesn't work.
Oh, there's like hundreds and hundreds of people on X who are I don't know if they're paid, but they're like, I use Goal overnight, and they're using Goal for everything, because it's like a Ralph Wiggum loop almost. And so I hear a lot of people using it successfully, is what I'm hearing.
I typed in /goal and said, I don't have this command.
Oh, you have to use you have to turn on. It's an experimental thing.
Oh, okay.
So you would have to. So if you get a codex tab, if I can get to my terminal, I think it's under experimental, and then it's gone.
Might have been.
It's now just no. Maybe you don't.
There was a release yesterday, so maybe.
Yeah, 1.29 was a big release. I don't even have it yet. But if you should check your CLI. If you check experimental, it was originally under here, and maybe it's not anymore.
You can also set up like a cron automation to just run every 30 minutes to get slices out of your workflows.
With Goal?
No, just with hacking, like you mentioned before, you can schedule like a automation at midnight or 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock, so typically run while you're trying to sleep.
Okay, so I saved this thing. I'd love to hear if anyone had similar experiences. Like I see a bunch of people on the web talking about this, where they're saying they're turning reasoning off with GPT 5.4, and they're like setting it to medium or even low sometimes. So this guy, I don't know who he is, but he's got a big following. He talked about, hey, my experience of using GPT specifically for coding, I turned off reasoning, I put the effort level like low, and it's been amazing. And then all of a sudden, like the next 3 or 4 days after he posted this, there were like all these people on the internet saying, oh my God, this is amazing, this is really good. So I'm just curious, did anyone in the room hear about this or try it? Seems like this new paradigm of like, you're gonna use the LLM, but you're just gonna dumb it down and use it that way. And apparently it's really effective. Also, it's really fast.
5.5 or 5.4?
5.5, sorry.
Okay.
This is 5.5.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But
it's like,
5.4
what
on medium?
metrics do they have?
Is that basically the idea?
Yeah,
5.5.
5. Yeah.
I use 5.4 on medium. I didn't know I'm like part of some trend, but that's what I do.
It's 5.5. Sorry, but it is on Medium, is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing like a bunch of coders. Some
Well,
of
I
those.
mean, I don't, here's my conspiracy theory, is that like fucking medium was normal up until 2 weeks ago, right? Until Claude changed the default to X high, the default was medium, and I'm just like accustomed to thinking of medium as like the safe space, and I've just continued like that.
Right.
Because I look at X high as just a way to burn my tokens.
But can I poll the room then? How many of you are using X high on Codex?
I am, but only because you suggested it.
I've
I've never done any.
No, I'm
Previous
for
class,
planning,
yes.
the initial phase when I'm giving it a spec, like generate a spec or do the planning with me, that's on high, and then I turn it down to medium and okay, now I'm going to keep going.
So high and medium, but not X high.
No.
So the only time I've turned off thinking is on my local models like Clem 3.6 because I think it's much more efficient and it's much faster. So I don't know, maybe it's that because thinking takes a while, and the response time of us waiting 5, 10, 15 minutes is much faster for them, so they feel like they're working faster maybe.
That was my gut feeling.
That's the only thing I can think of. Like,
Without trying this, it sounds like it doesn't necessarily do things better, but because it's so much faster, there's less reasoning stuff that it doesn't think that much. It doesn't bring the huge pages of reasoning loads in there. It just feels easier and faster to use. So maybe that's why people like that.
Yeah, and it's much cheaper probably, so.
Yeah.
it's always that feeling that we have, oh, this is better, this is better, this is faster, this is responding faster.
Yeah, but I saw yesterday a tweet from DHH, the founder of Race, and he started using 5.5 low, and he said it's very good. So
Oh,
I think
low.
it's very good.
Yeah. Yeah, that was another part of the thing. Medium or low. but also, you know, like, not enough people live stream how they use their models. So I never know, like, what are we looking at here? Like, are we talking, this makes a lot of sense for someone who's like, they have their diff open, their diff viewer open, like, all the time. And they're just like, instead of coding, they're really lazy and they're like, I want to type 2 functions, but I don't want to type it. I'll just like write a sentence to turn it into 2 functions, which is a totally different way of using the LLM compared to like, work in this subsystem and let's speak about it from a system perspective. We don't have like, people don't live stream their shit, so when they say Medium is good, I have no way to like,
I've
compare
seen
that.
DHH code, and he'll write the function signature and be like, fill it out. So yeah, low's gonna work.
That's gonna definitely, yeah, so then even
Like,
going
why
back
you
to,
need X high for that? You don't.
Right.
That's like fancy autocomplete.
but to me see, this is like what, I get so confused, like, if you're doing that, if you're writing function signatures, you're scaffolding the skeleton and you're not filling it out, I feel like that was, Claude 3.5 era.
Totally.
Yeah,
I agree with that. That
That's
sounds weird. I mean, DHH is like, with obviously a god to some extent, but it's like, he may not be
He's washed
a
up,
god.
man.
Exactly. He may be washed.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's weird. Like, why would you do that? That
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
seem logical.
I've just seen him do it once. I don't know if that's what he's always.
Wait, this is what I'm saying. I don't want to hijack anything, but it's like, to me, when I come here, right, like your meta thing, we have all these people. I have no access to other people that are obsessed with this thing that I'm obsessed with, other than like in this room.
Yeah.
And I wish I knew more about the things that all of you are doing, because I don't know what I don't know, and I think I'm doing well, but how do I know? And so I agree with you that like, this is a huge blind spot for it's like, how do you use these things?
I do use this sort of stuff in one workflow, and the only time I use the more complex models is validating that a ticket is good. So creation of a ticket is not done by a complex model. Development is not done by a complex model. The orchestrator that runs everyone uses a complex model because he wants to make decisions across different domains of expertise. But if I don't get the actual ticket written in such a way that it considers the rest of the system, that's when downstream bugs happen by the developer because they don't have a good enough plan in front of them. They'll write code to what they see, not to the greater system. So in a 7-step workflow, there's only the orchestrator and the validation of the story that uses a complex model, reasoning model.
Using it, have you played with Advisor yet? Yeah. You already kind of baked that in yourself, so.
Yeah, I also, I don't experiment as much as you guys with outside of the bots too much. I'm not using Codex.
Well, Advisor is Claude.
Yeah, but I'm not changing my frameworks too much because once they get baked
Yeah.
until the next time I look at that problem.
Because the exact thing you're talking about fits. So I was just curious. If
Because the advisor, is that also the area where the advisor gets called from the cheaper model?
yeah, if the
goes up to
cheaper model gets confused, it'll upgrade it.
yeah.
Did you use Advisor?
No.
No, that's what we're saying. I don't.
This is the Sonic pairing with Opus Advisor strategy. That was another thing that was talked about at that Claude Code event where they were showing, I think they were showing metrics for like Sonnet only versus Sonnet with an Advisor Opus. And when it was using Advisor, it was cheaper, it would take less turns to complete the task.
Because I figured out a way to do my own advisor, and what I would do is just a cheaper model or low reasoning, and then I just spin up on the plan an adversarial review of a more expensive model. But I decide when I call. I'm not sure I trust the agent to decide. It's just I know what is complex for me.
I was doing a data enrichment project last week, and for decided to also, comparing Opus versus Sonnet. And for kicks, I tried Haiku. And Haiku was almost within the same margin as Sonnet and Opus. It was really crazy. I was surprised. I thought Haiku was supposed to be garbage, so I never used it.
For like data stuff, it's good. It's
I was like,
fine.
wow. And so now I understand why people are throwing, 6 different models into agents. One for review, one for this, one for reasoning. They said you could really drop the token usage by a lot because the newer, smaller models are distills of like some of the larger ones.
Yeah.
So like Haiku now might be Opus from last year.
I'll use I would use Haiku a lot if I'm just doing like like text processing. Like it's fine for that.
It's bad. It
Yeah.
can do much more than I feel like this is what Dave was saying, but like in my Cloud MD as an example, like global Cloud MD, I have a thing in all plans, each phase of a plan for Opus to suggest which model to use to implement the plan. And I would say 80 to 90% of the plans I make, the phases are implemented by Haiku. And there are almost never errors. And I mean, I feel like I had to do this once the token, the compute thing started ramping up. If I didn't do that, huge issues. But before I started doing that and everything was being done by Opus, and after, I don't notice any difference. There's no like fallout that I see.
So the other thing I've been experimenting with last week, there's an open source community out there called Ruflo, R-U-F-L-O, and it's dynamic swarm topologies for both Claude Code and Codex. But they're implemented differently because in Claude Code it's very native, it uses agent teams, it uses send message, and that's where my focus has been. And this repository is kind of a mess. It's really popular, it's got the 30,000 stars, but it's very much a mess at the moment. And the more research I do into it, the more I realise there's 2 parts to it. It's really just a transpiler from I want a swarm of some shape to what the agent team send message commands would look like. That's really all it's doing. It has this second concept called AgentDB. It's a WASM-based database that they put in. And the idea of it is it allows you to have your own sort of agent-level brain so that when these send messages are happening, they can actually talk to learnings in a little brain. So conceptually, this is a really cool repository, but it's also a bit of a clusterfuck in some ways. And I think it's had too many cooks on it. So when I say it's a transpiler, essentially all you do is say, I want a swarm that's either a fan out, a hierarchy, a workflow, or a loop, like you do a Ralph Wiggum loop sort of thing. I want that sort of swarm, and it generates kind of the prompts that each agent would have. It generates the model that they should use, and then it just defines them natively as agent, curly braces, agent team, send message sort of concepts. So I think there's a lot of benefit in looking at this. I didn't think it was well implemented, but it's really easy to reverse engineer what it's doing.
Like one of the things I find that's hard when you're trying to do some kind of multi-agent thing is figuring out like who does what and like when they do pass-offs.
So yeah, because there's this concept of dependencies, like does it fan out and then come back or that? If you just have a general conversation with the bot and say, I would like you to do this, I think you should fan out, I believe there might be a dependency. It'll kind of figure out the plan.
Kinda.
So what I've been doing, I've built my own Ruflo skill because I think I'm not going to use Ruflo, I think I'm going to learn from it, but the goal of this skill is really to go, how do you think through a swarm, and how do you also maybe have a backlog of one-shot examples that worked well? Because when I went to use it, I had mixed results.
Yeah, because like I would do multi-agent stuff, like multi-agent teams in Claude, and I'd be like, here's roughly what I want each agent to do. I'm not putting a lot of thought into it though. I'm like, you know what I mean? and not putting a lot of thought in it doesn't really work. Like you really need to architect this motherfucker for it to do what you want, you know?
Yeah, so I've been thinking, like, with Nick doing ALS, right? So if we think down the path of dark factories being this thing that we're just going to throw tasks and a goal or whatever and go and build it, you're still going to need under the hood predefined workflows or swarms. So I think we will end up spending a lot of time thinking of the swarm, but then set and forget it. That's why when you asked me, am I using the advisor, I said no, because I've done a set and forget, and it was hard to build.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it again. But the idea of looking at this is, I think we could generate it
from it.
quickly.
But
It's
isn't
not good.
But if you're doing this, isn't closing the loop to have some kind of proper eval, right? In other words, like if we have on-demand swarm topography, right? Like it's basically going to say, yeah, let me figure out what's the coordination and how they're going to come together or fan out or whatever, yeah? Then if we can do this very cheaply, in other words, you're not building this thing and thinking very deeply about it, right? Then does that mean we can have like 5, I have one goal, right? Do 5 experiments where you do 5 different flavors of teams that you think at this level of probability, right? Do it, and then it runs an eval at the end. It's kind of like the Karpathy learning thing, right?
Research.
Conceptually, right?
That would be the way to do it, but now you're in engineering. Like you're spending time. For me, these are like one-off prompts. I'm like, let's see what we can do.
Yeah, but you know what I mean, though.
That doesn't work on the low. I'm working on the low end. That doesn't work well.
I guess
That's
my
what I'm
point is,
saying.
if you start abstracting all this shit,
Yeah.
and you're not like getting in there, right? Then what you're doing is just building a system where it's like multiple shots on goal, right? And then you have another system that says, yeah, this one's working better. And so therefore, the next time it calculates the probability of which one to do, it'll like self-learn. And then it's set and forget, but then on a higher level of abstraction.
But
That's
you're
the
really getting
engineering.
out of that area, and you're now moving into harness engineering, because what you're really talking about is all the stuff around it in the loop.
Yeah.
That says, like, we want to build these individual workflows. We can do them today, but we don't actually have a harness that can pull it all together dynamically for us. So that's harness engineering. We're all approaching that a little bit, but it's pretty immature at the moment.
Yeah. That's my point. Is I think it's really exciting what you're talking about, but it feels like to get to the next level, to get to working, we have to close the loop, right? And that's where we're not there yet. Is that right?
We're not
in your view.
And this isn't that anyway. Look, what Roofline is just looking at a workflow. ALS just looking at a workflow. ALS closes the loop.
I see.
But that's almost certainly what they're doing in the cloud system when they're running stuff in Anthropic Cloud, speaking of number of pages running in the behind the scenes. They are evaluating the algorithms and pulling stuff together. But if you want to run this like locally in your system, you're still going to have to do the work yourself. So there is no, like you said, there have to be a system like that, but nobody's going to give you like you can download the skill and then everything magically works. You'll have to do the work to have your own local swarm working the same way. Whereas all these cloud systems, they're pushing people to go do, they are doing the work for you, making it easier for people.
Is that happening?
Yeah, so the
Yeah,
manage agents in Claude has like definition of done, where you kind of Karpathy like what your goals are, and it'll run your agent in a loop, do evals, and iterate. So like, but that whole scaffold is currently what you would need to build yourself, and it's work. It's not. It's engineering. Now I'm trying to. When I say I'm doing it lazily, I'm trying to not do the engineering. I'm trying to see like what you can do in a one shot. And I would say right now, not great.
How is that different from just putting the iteration into the prompt itself?
That's kind of, you do a little bit of it, but it's not going to get you there in a one shot. It's going to be engineering work.
And that's where there's current harnesses that we don't have access to from Anthropic.
That's what they're
doing evals on the prompts for us. So every time they run something, they take our immature prompt, and by the end of it, it's probably improved. But they never return it to us, so we don't know what they did. And so harness engineering is very different to
Like, I can give you an example. I wanted to do like a multi-agent swarm to like speed up database queries, right? I wanted a website to run faster, right? So I just let it run overnight and I came back and what had it done? Well, it made it a lot faster, but it was just like caching function calls between processes. I was like, well, technically that works. But that's not really what I wanted. So like, there's a little bit of, it was like, okay, I have to throw that away and I have to try again. So that's me being lazy, too lazy, right? But you don't know until you do it. Now you're in engineering work, which I'm trying to avoid.
Trying to avoid.
Yeah, trying to avoid engineering work.
Would be nice if you could take all the hard work they're doing in the cloud, just pull it to your system and then run that happily without having to do the work. But I don't think.
I think we're moving towards continuous learning to a certain degree with evals, but I just don't think it's easy to do yet. But goals,
Yeah.
the managed agents, like definition of done from managed agents from Claude, these are eval-ish loops for continuous improvement. That's what I'm trying to get to lazily, and just like it's not there yet. We're not
Nice to
there.
keep the work like.
Codex, one of the things is like, Codex has the idea of like looping and closing the loop, like baked in, where at least previous Claude, it's like you'd have to like shim it in there to a certain degree.
You'll either have to like go to the dark side and start using all these user-friendly cloud services that are running everything for you, or you just have to stick to your own system and then keep working on it.
You gotta do
Either
the
way.
engineering
You
work.
can't have the both worlds that easy.
I just check in with you though, but this statement of go over to the dark side, why is that a problem? Because I've used some of these dark side systems.
Oh, it's not a problem.
And
at
they're
all.
so, they save me a week of work.
Yeah.
Right? And I still get the code back in the repo. Like, are we going to be building our own harnesses, or are we just going to offsource and figure out a different way to make money as engineers?
Eventually, I'm gonna have to like do the same. Like, I'm gonna fight this as long as I can. I wanna have everything done myself. But at the end of the day, I'm not gonna be able to keep up with all this system. No way. And if I'm sticking to some religious reason about the system, I would be missing out lots of useful concepts.
The other thing is your computer does become a bottleneck at some point. Like Nick's got 40 threads, so he's got a little bit of buffer, but I've got 16, so you know, that's still a lot, but at a certain point, just spinning shit off to where your process limit doesn't become an issue, you know.
Yeah, I'm trying to avoid that because I want to be able to change the hardness of the agent if I want to. Let's open my project, switch to Claude, to Codex from Claude, which works now because everything is my own skills and stuff on my system. But if the whole system is running in some sort of a cloud workflow, switching from to OpenAI from Anthropic with that system is going to be a lot harder.
I think you need, just like how you code with LLMs, I think you need to keep the primitives standard. Docker, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what do both these cloud systems do? They give you a Docker instance and pull code in, bootstrap it, and then do the work and push it back to GitHub. If you keep those as your primitive, you don't really have to care where it runs, right?
So the work is to maintain this like be the instructions for happening in the cloud, in Anthropic cloud, and then if I want to change over to OpenAI, I can basically take my heavily curated instructions and send them over to OpenAI. This is what I was having in your competitor. Made it work for me in your system.
Well, it's like, what do both the cloud inferences do? They pull in your code, bootstrap it in Docker, run your prompts, spit the code back out to GitHub in a PR. So if you can orchestrate that locally,
Sure.
and then you could push it wherever you wanted, you know, it would work the same in OpenAI managed environments, it would work the same in Claude. Keep the primitives,
Yeah.
like work under those primitives.
But you also said,
Hopefully they don't diverge.
you also said that you have to prompt Codex very differently than Claude, right? So you need a set for each provider and keep it up to date and consistent and
Need that translator.
Yeah, I see that. I see that like making a web page work in the old school days of like IE6, Mozilla, and Chrome, you know, where you would have to have like a bare set. That's my idea of primitives, like dumb it down to something everything can use, but you have to understand the edge cases there.
Yeah. So you'll have an if in all your prompts.
Wow, my HTML wouldn't do that, but yeah, if you were shit at it.
How would the prompts differ for the various models?
I just think codex, you need to be more explicit and less, hey, this is what I want to do, roughly. It's like, nah, it doesn't really work.
Yeah, define a role, goals, and output you expect, the metrics around that.
Yeah. I almost feel like if it works in codex, it would probably work in Plot, but maybe not the other way around.
But this is why we need a harness that's always doing evals on every prompt so that we can take it to different systems. And I also think, like, to deal with, like, rather than thinking of whatever coding primitives you're doing, can you represent every one of them as a recipe, as a prompt? And it's not the code you take to another system, it's the recipe you take to another system.
Sharing the ideas, not implementation.
Yeah, because you could take that up the Claude stack as well. As soon as a new Claude model goes through, so I'm not taking the code with it. I'm just taking the ideas and it'll implement it better because it's smart.
It seems many of you moved from Claude to Codex, and what does it mean in this context specifically? Like if I have agents and of course I wrote them for Claude, do I need now to translate everything, or what would it
You
be?
would 100%.
No, don't be different. I just saw in the codex, in the experimental tools, it's migration tool. In codex, experimental tools, it's migration tool. So if you use
Migration tools for
Oh, but that migration thing, doesn't it just someone reverse engineered it like this week, and they were like, oh, it's literally a copy and paste.
Copy and
Yeah,
paste.
but basically that's all.
That's all it is.
I'm in my project I use Civis because I use both codex and Cloud.
Yeah.
Why do you use both?
Because in some cases I like each model more, and I have two subscriptions. So, but right now I'm quitting Cloud.
You're quitting?
Yeah, I think it's like focus is more stupid, slower.
I use both because I like to have multiple models reviewing code changes. I'll say to all of them, like, review the recent commit, read the message, does it do what it says it's going to do, you think it incorrectly, and I do get different results. I'll even use the free Kilo models in addition sometimes.
And how do you orchestrate your workflow if one agent runs it with Codex and another with Claude? How do you
It's kind of manual. I have a terminal window and tabs with each, with each thing running Claude and Codex and Kilo, and they're all looking at the same file system, of course, and
But then
commit. And then when they generate their reports, if there are findings, I basically copy and paste it into the original Codex window that generated the code change itself. It does it, and then I go back after that commit is amended. I go back to the agent that reported it and I say, check now, and it checks. And and then I don't usually finish until there's at least one no findings result in all of the reviewing models. So I'll use Gemini also. Now, for some reason, Gemini seems to be a lot more thorough than the other models, but it also takes a lot longer, so I manage that. Depending on how important or complex the commit is, I might, waive my requirements a bit.
Have you tested it running the review with the same model? If you
what's the
coding
next?
in Claude, and then how's that really
I'm not
different
sure.
from reading with Codex?
The review with Codex, well, first of all, you mean the review command in Codex?
No, I mean just like running the code review. If you write something, component, a piece of code with say Codex, and then you want to use another harness on model to review that code, like the whole thing. Have you tried running? Like how different are the results?
Very different.
Using the same harness that coded it versus somebody else.
Using the Codex application for models other than OpenAI models? You mean?
The whole stack, like the CLI tool and the models, like the Codex you're using DBD5, yes. So you write the code with that, and then you review the code with that, and that comes with some sort of a review result. But then you switch to Claude and review the same code with the same instructions against the code. How different are those two reviews?
Very different.
There you
In fact, usually Codex comes back and say no issues.
Yeah.
go.
Another agent,
Codex will always, if you do like a review with Codex, it's like, no, it's perfect. I already wrote it.
And it's a different
Always.
session. It's even a different session, but it usually comes back with nothing, and that's another reason why I use the other vendors.
But if you ever do like code review with the Anthropic, it finds like millions.
He always finds.
Yeah.
It
Codex
is
is
like-
always
no,
finds
it's
something.
perfect. But
Have you guys tried doing the, so there's different ways of prompting it, and if you treat it poorly, they say you get better results. And they did scientific studies actually, but, yeah, I'll try to find it, send it to the group.
It sounds like those dating pros that
Yeah, so,
YouTube videos.
but they were also, so they were also saying, so if you tell the LLM, another LLM wrote this, please analyze
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Sometimes it butchers it more, even though it came from itself. And
So-
This is a big tip. This is like one of those techniques where it's like never tell the LLM that the request came from you. Say it's my boss or
That's
something.
right, because it's always trying to please the user, you,
Yeah.
or itself. So if you say, no, I got this off, from somewhere else, oh, that's butchery.
Yeah.
I'll try that actually.
That might lead into this section where it actually understands the intent down, and we can reverse engineer intent. Is that what's going on here?
I'm not sure. But before we get to it, I actually wanted to ask and poll the room on, does anyone think about in your calculus when you're sort of either coding or developing your whatever it is you're making, do you think about scaling compute time? Does anyone do that? Like, how can I add more compute time to this task? Does that make any sense to anyone?
You mean that it runs longer, or?
Yeah, so here's the general, and I got this from like Boris. Boris Cherny came out and said, I don't even know when it was a while ago, and he said that the simplest way to think about improving the task quality, and also like its ability to get done for a given piece of work, is to just scale compute time as high as you can. Test time compute, yeah. Just scale it as high as you can. Like find every so like what he came out this week and he's like, what did he say? I have 1,000 sub agents that run usually.
He doesn't write prompts.
Yes, but they have like these incredible systems where what they're trying to do is they're saying like, build feature A, and there are two worlds here. So for building feature A, in world 1, you can throw 30 minutes of compute time at it, and that's like you prompting and letting the model run for 30 minutes. In world B, you can throw like 8 hours of compute time at the problem. And it just turns out that in general, the second world ends up with a better result. And so the general idea is for every task, like I would just throw as much compute as I can at it. Like how can I do that? How can I raise those levers? So the question I'm asking you guys is like, do you think about this? Do you have ways of turning that knob of like, I want to add more test time compute to problem that I'm working on? Or you don't think about it at all and you're like, what the heck are you talking about?
Well, in our world, that translates to that it runs as long as possible and maxes out subscriptions, right, or budgets, because we don't really have access.
That's one way to think about it, yeah.
Except you're running your self-hosted models or whatever. But let's assume we are on a whatever subscription. So we want to max out runtime, we want to max out tokens, and max out our subscription to get everything out of it we can, close to 100%. I don't know. Lately I'm always throwing in do deep research, do your evals, write tests for every function, only if it passes. Write a GitHub workflow to let an independent entity run your tests, blah, blah, blah. And like that makes it run longer. Is it better? I don't know yet.
So I think about it. I think think about it all the time, but I don't have the mechanism to make it happen. So when I'm doing a BMAD workflow team, I've got all these different agents all taking the same problem different ways, but it's very structured. If I'm using a Ralph-Wiggin loop, I'm just relying on token burn and self-improvement going stuff. The reason I'm looking at RooFlow is so that I can figure out new patterns, but until I've got a mechanism to just auto loop and self-improve, I can't get there. But in my head, I've got 5 computers on my network. They're just little M4s, 1 M2. I want them all to have a 200 codex and a 200 Claude, so that's whatever that is, a whole lot of money spent per month. But I want them to all be burning their maximum tokens. That's all I want them to do. So I think about it, I just don't know how to get there. I know it's dark factories, I know it's loops,
Yeah.
I know it's eval.
It's some form of a
don't know
loop
how to
for
do it.
sure. Because it's like, the way I think of it is like, your input is, it should not change or it should go lower. That's like one of the factors of the equation. So when I write a prompt to do some, I want some task done, and I spend 20 minutes on it, that number should never go up, it should only go down. But the test time compute that gets exercised should always be going up over time.
Like how are you finding the how are you creating back pressure to where
It's not, actually, it's interesting, it's not
Yeah.
required, but it's a good question, keep going.
like you need useful work for the model to do to surface more work. So like when Boris is talking about that, he does talk about the workflows that they're using, right? So like let's say just implementation is one, but then it's like testing, does it pass the test? All right, that's more test time compute. That's like
Exactly, yes.
That's like an inflection
Yeah.
reflection loop to come back down. Okay, test pass. Try to do a merge. Does the merge work?
Yeah, put a loop in there to fix
So
that.
they're creating back pressure. They're not just like, hey, loop on this.
No,
Like,
no, you're stacking loops on loops, you got maybe a bunch of loops chained together.
You need to create back pressure. You need
Yeah.
to create work for the model to do that's of value, right? This was originally my problem with the Ralph loops. People are like, oh, just iterate till it works. It's like, nah, that's not how you do it. That's never
Yeah.
gonna work.
But to make
So-
it truly
You don't-
continue all the time, you would need to finish a feature, let's say, do all the tests, all the evals, deploy it, go over it with Playwright, let it click around,
Yeah.
everything works, great,
Yeah.
write documentation, then do a deep research, like how can I improve the UI, how can I improve UX, what would other people do, what feature could I add, and then the
Yeah.
whole loop runs
Yeah.
again, right?
Yeah. So that's
Because
what.
you need more input, or new input.
Well, you're creating. This is my point of you're creating back pressure,
Yeah.
like useful things to work on. So like if I do a design, I'll have like a UX specialist, I'll have a design expert,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, you did the first pass, run all these guys through and see where they're having problems and iterate until
Yeah.
they're all happy. Once they're happy, we move on.
So one of the areas where I'm doing back pressure on this computer, so I do development on the other computer, but Angel Eye is my observability of Claude prompts and hooks. That's all it is. And it's just a shitload of conversations that they store. So I've written skills that are just iterating over 2,500 conversations, and it's just looking for patterns. I don't know what to do with the patterns yet, but I'm finding the seams between sessions, like when am I doing orchestrations because I've used multiple team-up sessions versus when am I doing orchestrations because I spun up various agents? When are my Ralph-Wiggin loops effective? Like I have no idea. Like I know the code words, but I don't know whether the code's good. So my back pressure technique, and there's 1,000 of them out there. It's not like we need new data. We just got to go look at old data in unique ways. Just go, well, I've done a lot of work in Claude Code. Can you figure out what I'm doing wrong? So that's one technique.
So like, I built a primitive, like when I say primitive, I mean like a building block thing, which is like do a research on best practice skill. Why do I do that? Well, the idea is like, hey, in this loop, we need to do this with best practices. That spins off and creates a corpus of data, right? So if you're doing something in a loop, you're like, we want to use use best UX practices. Well, that spins off a whole fucking research thing that then creates a corpus of which you can judge it against, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if it's just like, how else would you prompt that? You would just be like, oh, use UX best practices, and it's like, well, what are you gonna get there, right?
So I like what you said there about, I don't have a best practices one, though I have architect ones, but I create teams for different problems.
Yeah, yeah.
So software teams, UX teams, documentation teams, and you burn a shitload of tokens there because you create a lightweight orchestrator that brings the knowledge together and evaluates it. But then you can create 6 sub-agents that all do their things, and I find that useful. I don't always use it. Again, it's something you want in an automation in the harness, not have to remember to do it. But you can burn a lot of tokens, and I like this metric that if you're not burning a lot of tokens, then you're not a good developer. Like however it was phrased by the NVIDIA guy, and it's about what you just said. It's like, okay, there's an area of concern. Best practices. What are the 10 different ways we could look at best practices?
Yeah, exactly. What is best practice?
Yeah.
And so, like, my idea with that is, like, those can become, like, individual team members that handle that one thing, but, like, I just have a skill to, like, make those artifacts, right?
Yeah.
My job is then to, like, review those artifacts and make sure they're not complete bullshit at some point.
You always add, like, you know, give me the top 5 weaknesses that you see currently. Define my metrics, and then I have a goal for it to reach like a certain percentage. Like if I'm at 50%, it needs to get to 90%, so that can kick off a super long run process.
Like, I talked about, like, I have a project I pulled in, like, about 20 gigabytes of data, right? Data, and I have a website built around it. Problem with 20 gigabytes of data, which scales gigabytes per week, is like database queries are slow. So what did I do to create some back pressure? Because I'll write queries and the fucking server will crash, right? You know, poor indexes and stuff. So I made like a database benchmarking thing. So it's like, if you're gonna write a query, you need to make sure everything has an index, you know, If you're doing filters, it needs to be properly indexed, because Codex wasn't doing this by default. So it's like, okay, you can write something, but you need to make sure your queries are all hitting indexes, and that becomes like a back pressure.
That's a verifiable.
It's a
test,
verifiable
yeah.
thing, which is why I like it. Like, I don't like non-verifiable.
It doesn't, like, non-verifiable sits in the realm of like vibe coding.
But like, what's UX?
Oh yeah,
You know what
subjective
I mean?
things.
So it's
sure,
like, it
sure,
depends
yeah.
what, right?
Yeah,
This is, a database benchmark is something you can hill climb, right?
yeah,
And that was
yeah.
hill climbing, non-verifiable things, actually something Dario talks about in there.
What do you mean by hill climbing?
Hill climbing is the idea, like, my benchmark is like 300 milliseconds, I want to get it to 30, right? So you iterate and you slowly hill climb towards 30 milliseconds. Like, that's a verifiable thing. It's like, how long does this query take to run? It, as a baseline, we want to get it closer to this number. So, like, you could iterate and improve that, right?
Yeah.
But what I realized lately, what helps with that is, a couple of weeks ago, I've been talking about the knowledge system that we set up, right? We added a thing like learnings to it, but it's basically we describe problems, and then there's a skill that checks these problems. Like, whenever something went wrong, it goes into that knowledge base too. And then when it does something similar again, it checks like, oh, did I do this mistake again? We already learned that this is bad. So it will try to avoid all of these things. And that helped a bit. Like, I guess when you build it up further, especially when you do iterations, like you said, because every time you have a learning and you know, we don't document what worked, we started to document what doesn't work.
Yeah.
So I take what you said and I do 3 things with it. So the learnings is the first thing that you've got to do. But once you've got a corpus of 3 of them linked to a ticket, you're starting to see you're seeing a pattern now, it's not a learning. And so you promote it to a pattern. And this is why my most advanced model runs on the guy that validates the tickets. So if one guy is creating a story, a ticket, whatever you want to call it, the validator is going, okay, is that good? Now let's go and look at the learnings and the patterns and go, well, how should we be, is there even example pattern code for this problem? Like, especially around things like security, where it's cross-cutting and it gets implemented differently. And so that pattern is taken verbatim and copied into the ticket, and then when Amelia, the developer, comes in and writes the code, she's just going, oh, I just see, I write what's in front of me. It's been validated from a pattern.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, that makes sense.
Last week I have been working on a problem, and what I found is that as I now solved it, that the problem definition just changed, and therefore my questions start to be more simpler and simpler and simpler. And now looking back, I think maybe that could be like a much faster path, more cost effective, if I would just said something like, what is the dumbest way to formulate the questions? And I think I threw a lot of my own time and compute on problems that were too complex, too meta, and I thought that it felt like I'm doing work, but now looking back, I think I just take like an amazing tool like Claude, and like, oh, I have this problem, and I just like start creating levels of abstractions that are maybe unnecessary, and then in the normal world, I would just maybe talk to a human and say, oh, look, what questions do you think I should ask? You're an expert in this area, you probably have solved this problem, and I would go like much faster to the solution. So when I'm thinking about the definition that you, David, use, oh, you're not a good developer if you're not burning tokens, I'm not sure it makes sense to me, because you're a good developer for me if you have the fastest path to solve the right problem, and therefore you need to know what is the right problem and the right question, and go the fastest path and not the most compute.
Yeah. Usually if you put too much load on these models and rely on their answers, they're going on the most generic, most average answer. And then, like you said, they're just doubling down on that middle path. But like, for example, the data engineering question that you had, it's if you say like, hey, go down the data engineering path, what are the guys doing in the latest system, what are the generic databases, what are the fastest query structures, what's the open source models, is it a relational database, is it a star shape, is it a vector database, what data should be stored in the memory, and then you go down, you direct it in this path, and then give me the solutions. Now compare my answers to what you're building. That, I think you still have to direct it that way. But if you go down one, give it like a task to do, it's going to keep giving you a generic answer. You always have to direct it to go to the expert side.
But I guess what I'm saying is, me as the person who directs the agents, I see that I'm making so much mistakes by having assumptions about what problem to solve.
You have to
And
be
which
more
are wrong.
efficient.
Yeah.
But you learn that by failing.
I think the brain chemistry of it, when you're stoking like 6 chords running at the same time, you feel like you're getting a lot done. You're getting that dopamine hit. And that's why it's really easy to get lost in the weeds and just keep stoking them instead of step back and think about the problem.
Right. Yeah.
And so I read something recently, and this was, I think it's being published, where they were getting health advice from these LLMs. And they found that when the LLM knows that you're going towards a certain path, like, all right, I have a pain here, I think it's because I'm overweight. It'll actually go and give you advice that, yeah, you're right. It's because you're
Exactly.
overweight. But then if you're the same person, but say, oh, I think it's because I ate too much juice. Oh, you're right, too much juice. Oh, I think it's because I didn't, because I don't know, blah, 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 blah. Oh yeah, it's because of your shoes. You got the wrong model. And so extrapolate that learning and apply it to software engineering. If it hints that you're talking about a networking issue versus a bug in the code, it's going to go down that path. So you have to kind of take it a step back. Sometimes you have to tell the stop, let's go at a higher level and give me the options. What are the 20 different options, and then I will choose which path to go down.
Right. It's also just a case of having an adversarial agent to
Yeah,
complement, right?
absolutely.
So that way, it's like, you know, the other end can sort of give you that dopamine rush, like whatever you say, I'm anchored to it, awesome.
Yeah.
And then it's like maybe even sort of two separate, well, one's probably more than enough, just to
Yeah.
say, right, take this stuff, tear it to shreds.
And when I think about it, my takeaway is slightly different because I run a lot of adversarial agents, but what I find is they are still biased towards the way I instruct them. Like,
Yes.
review that thing.
Yes.
And why do I review that thing? Because I believed something.
Yeah.
And so therefore, I think for me, the way out is to engage probably with a human when I say, oh, that problem is 2 weeks. So before I start solving it, maybe who has solved it? I talk to you because you have different knowledge, completely different.
Well, I think in your prompt you can conceal your bias.
Sorry, mate, this is why I paused on two, right? Because you can have your adversarial agent and then of course you can adjudicate them, which is totally neutral. But you're right, you're only as good as your universal, you know, at the end.
And my agents are in my universe. That's it. Like, they cannot get out.
Yeah, that's where you probably do need a genuine outside in
Well-
with that.
Well, I
They
think-
come in and be the party lead, yeah, fair enough.
I think you could conceal your bias in the prompt by, instead of saying, you know, I think it's this, you could say, it may be one of these N things, or, you know, just word it in a way that it doesn't know what you think it might ask you for, friend.
Yeah, a couple gotchas here. Make sure you're not using memory. 'Cause,
Are you not using memory?
well, if you are, your biases are baked in,
Yeah.
potentially.
And
You
look
gotta
at all
be
your
careful.
conversations.
You,
That's the adjudicated, right?
right?
You're not using
Yeah.
memory?
I turn it off sometimes when I want a fresh answer.
You can turn it off. I didn't know.
You know, because if not, what is it doing? It's going everything you're cycling on your past slot potentially. You know, your biases might be baked into your memory. You need to be conscious.
Especially for adversarial review agent.
Exactly.
Right?
Because
Yeah.
it's gonna. It's
I
gonna,
didn't know that.
Well, it's something to think about. The other thing is, another way to do that would be to. You're working with an agent. You're like, okay, I want to get a fresh look at this. Open up a fresh, clear context prompt with everything you know now, and try again. Don't continue in the same prompt.
What do you mean by that? Like, session?
A fresh session with no memory. Ask again with the knowledge you have now, because otherwise, all that bullshit you've talked about previously is baked in. It's gonna.
But Claude, so I need to disable my Claude because a lot of things are in Claude MD and it references all of the files and so on.
Depends.
You need to disable all of it.
No, no. you can
Well,
leave the
it's
quality.
like what should be. Memories in Claude are explicit. I don't turn on like auto saving memories, but I did turn them on in Codex, and I felt like I was getting a lot of like bullshit from previous that like I don't want anymore. I was like, I want to. We're at this point in time. I only want to know from this point in time. Like, fuck memories. Like, what are we doing now? One of the ways I would do this in Claude, I was like, do this in a sub-agent, because then I know I'm getting like a fresh context, right? But with Codex, one of the things I noticed, if I say do this in a sub-agent, it'll push a lot of context about what we're talking about, so the sub-agent knows what to do. I don't want that. I like Claude where I know every new session is starting with zero context. Like, I like that. I like to be certain
I thought
that it has no
Claude
knowledge.
does the same. It
It
instructs the
can,
sub-agent.
but like you need to figure out what is clean context and what is tainted context. You need to have that in your brain.
And you control it by disabling the memory.
In Codex I did, in Claude I just don't have it on by default. I've turned it off in Codex because it becomes non-deterministic. I want it to start with nothing.
Yeah, but now it's almost feeling it's harder to get a clean slate. Right? Like the irony of it is that before you're like, oh, I can't believe we used to just paste everything into ChatGPT and it was a total moron and knew nothing. I had to put everything. What a pain in the ass, right? But the beauty of that was you could control it, and I could open 3 sessions and be like, solve this problem and do it 3 different ways, you know. But now I find I get lazy, right? Because if I'm in a harness and I say, Opus, solve this, like give me a plan on how to solve this problem. Now I'm gonna go to GPT, give me a plan or whatever. It'll go, let me be smart. Let me think about this. Let me look at your context. And then it'll find the first generation so that I have to isolate the output, right? From the other agent so that it won't read the other guy's opinion, right? You know what I mean?
What is your strategy to do this isolation?
I'm just saying it's a pain in the ass, and I don't have one. I haven't bothered to, but I'm saying it makes it more difficult now because the harness it's pulling you towards. Let me just look at your whole repo. Let me look at your knowledge base. Let me look at your thing, and then you need to.
happens because it's very akin to the vibe coding wall. Like, what is the vibe coding wall? The vibe coding wall is the code base has grown to such a way where every new task that you're trying to do doesn't really get done well. Why? Well, it's because the code base is so big and the organization of it doesn't match the size. So you'll see this with that's why a vibe coding code base is called vibe coded. Like at some point your do this doesn't work and it takes 20 hours to get done. But there is strategy and techniques and structure to reduce that so that, for example, in your case of I ask Opus to do this problem and it knows that if it were to go in this directory, it's the wrong place to look because that is a generation 1 simulation, which I don't want. And so the question becomes, well, what techniques do you do to
So it can ignore.
so it can ignore that?
So is there techniques?
This
where
is
you can
where I would
ignore?
ask things of and I love asking it, how many Claude MD or Agent MD files? It's the first question to start with, and it goes from there.
Sorry.
So how? I love asking this question. We're gonna do it again. How many of you have 0 to 10 Claude MD files in your code base?
You can't say 0 to 10.
Sorry, 1 to 10. Yeah. But no more than 10. Like in whatever it is you're working in every day, approximately how many Claude MDs or HMD, whatever.
You should do 0, 1, and then 1.
0 to 10 is pretty
Okay, let's. How many? Who's got just only one?
Use more like skills than Claude MD.
Yeah. So let's see let's let the poll play out and you'll see where I'm getting at. Who has between 2 and 10? Let's just do that way. 2 and 10, no more. Okay. Who's got 11 to 50? Who's got 50 to 100? Anyone? Who's got more than 100? I have more than 200. I have 211.
You doing it per folder?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and this is one technique of many to say, my code base is so structured that when I ask, if I open up a brand new session, for one, I hate having to type the same thing a million times. I just want the experience of I open a brand new session, I type the dumbest, laziest way possible, and it gets the answer every single time. That is my expectation. So how do I achieve that? Which is sort of the problem you're talking about. I want that. How do I achieve it? One of them is the use of memory. I totally agree with you, by the way. Auto memory is a huge pain in the ass because it doesn't timestamp it.
So here's the thing with memory. Memory is like inbox 0. Memory is like a scratch pad that the agent can put learnings into that and then you're not paying attention to them. It's over there. It's in the memory. It shouldn't be in memory. You should be doing consolidation and bringing that back into an agent MD. Be explicit about it.
If you have these are learnings, don't do so and so, that's actually that's a technical debt.
Yeah.
That's technical debt. That's why you have to put that shit there. Because the actual fix is not to tell Claude, oh, we've tried these 20 things and they failed. It's you should have designed the system in a way where those failures just don't show up anymore.
Memory needs to be inbox 0. You need to be getting rid of your memories and consolidating them back.
Isn't that memory sometimes helpful though?
It would be more helpful if you fix the root of the problem.
There's a plugin
Would be
Compound
my
Engineering that does
What is it?
similar to this.
What's the plugin?
Compound Engineering.
Yeah.
They do pretty similar things, and they have plugins for Codex, Claude, and OpenCode also. And their philosophy is pretty similar. You keep learning every time you push something, and you make a mistake, and it learns and it stores it. So next time you don't make the same mistake. But I haven't played much with it, so I'm gonna start working working on it this week. But I think the philosophy is pretty similar to what you were doing. You make a mistake and you tell it to learn, and then keep storing all of that and keep building.
Okay.
And it kind of like stores it in one place so you can move from one platform to another.
Right. I think the idea is refinement.
Yeah.
Right? Like take these learnings, take these mistakes, and use it as a way to refine the code base. Because when the code base becomes refined, then you avoid like the problems that you're explaining. And I would draw your attention to the number of times that the Claude Code team has come out and said that we've basically rewrote Claude Code, or at least huge sections of it. They've said this multiple times, which gives you an insight into what's happening. Like, they're not just leaving the code there stale and populating their memory files with all the mistakes. They're just like literally changing the code base. Like we have to modify this thing. We have to refactor it, reduce all the technical debt. Even actually, it's the reason why there's not a lot of news this week from Claude and last week. And they've come out and they said it. They said the last week they spent the whole week on bug fixes. Was it 50 plus bug fixes or something? And this week was 60. So that's why there's only like 2 feature releases in the last 2 weeks.
Well, like a perfect example is their full screen mode, non-flicker mode they called it.
Oh,
they
yeah.
talked a lot about that in their presentation, which is a complete rewrite of how their
rendering system works.
Yeah,
it's huge rewrite actually.
Yeah, it's completely different.
Yeah.
It's like 2 separate systems.
Yeah.
Which is why you have to toggle it on or off, right? So.
Because it uses a lot of tokens.
Yeah.
Not tokens, like memory. So
The
the new one, it's polling like every second.
So is their old one.
The other one uses, I think, like less than 10%.
They said that it's memory consistent though. Whereas
There were a lot of leaks. There were tons of leaks in the old one.
In the old one, exactly.
So many leaks.
Like using less memory, yeah, sure when you started, but like the fucking Claude Code crashed my computer.
There were people with like 40 gigabytes of like Claude
it
Code
happened to me all the
eating
time.
up. Yeah, it was super annoying.
Can you show examples of your Cloud MD projects or describe what kind of information you gather?
Can I show? I'm sure I can. I don't think I can grab any. I have to be careful because like 80% of the code base is company code. Yeah.
What kind of information do you put in them? Is it description of what that directory tree is doing, or is it?
Good question. So it's a mix. Sometimes it's and so I will literally so when we talk about like learnings, like there's a mistake, put it in the memory file. I'll actually have technical debt. Like it has to structure it as this is technical debt, so that when I do a scan later, I'm like retrieve all technical debt from all the memory files. That's one of them, is like just clearly state technical debt as a structure. Another one is actually, this folder is not for these things. So that there's like these constraints that are in the memory files, and that's a big one because it's like, so if I ask a question for something, and the model has to do progressive disclosure, this is like the ClaudMD trick, or the 200 ClaudMDs is about progressive disclosure. So you would want to have the model, it's going to go like peek in this directory, peek in this directory, peek in this directory, and there should be, the file should say this directory only holds this, or it doesn't hold this. I play a lot with do a lot of engineering with the words there. What else do I have in there?
It's almost like a table of contents.
Sometimes it's,
Do you just have one skill that helps you manage all this?
Yeah, you're not writing these by hand.
Yeah, right.
No, I'm not writing any. I haven't wrote anything by hand, but yeah.
How do you prompt? Do you have a typical prompt to create them, or is it kind of one-off? Like, hey, in this one, this is what I'm after. And also, do you do it one at a time, or do you because like I like your idea, and it makes me want to take a project, for instance, and say, hey, let's make as many agents MD, as many as you as the model feels is appropriate for this project.
I definitely tell the model my intentions. I never write the file ever. I also don't open them and read them as much. Just too many at this point.
Sure, sure.
But so I trust like Opus 4.5 in the way that it writes stuff. It's able to express my intention very well. So I definitely tell the model to do it, for sure. I don't know. Watch my live stream.
Are these files including a description of what that directory does so that future queries into it don't have to figure it out for themselves?
Yeah, there's always, not always, but yes, there is like, this directory is for this thing. Like I said, sometimes it doesn't have that, and it just says, do not put this thing in there.
So maybe I think I have a similar question or just different phrasing. If I would, I also like the idea. Maybe I consider now to go, 200 plug in these. But when I consider this, what is the minimum process that I need to maintain it, and how to implement that process, and how would you think about this transition from one or two to multiples?
I would think you could just put it in your main quad.md file.
Practice that scenario, so how do you go from like one or two to many? Yeah.
I just did it right now, like as we're on a small project I have, like a web app, and I said, hey, make like a lot of these, and it said I don't. This is Codex, GPT 5.4 medium, right? And it said I don't recommend that. I recommend you put one in the, improve the one in the repo root, put one in the back end folder, put one in the front end folder, and that's enough for this. And it just did it. And so I don't know.
The specialties.
So like,
Huh?
I think the specialties is maybe where you would want to create the
What? I don't understand.
specialties database.
Sure.
front end,
Okay.
back
Got
end.
it. Got it. Special.
Not everything in the kitchen sink.
Well, then, but
Or token.
but you're kind of contradicting. From my understanding, like if he has 200 plus, that is not just. That is everything in the kitchen
That's just
sink.
the way he works.
No, I know. I like it though.
Yeah.
But it might not be a contradiction because you're also running a mono repo with everything.
Yeah, I was
you've
just about
got
to say
multiple
that. There's a big
projects.
difference when it's like,
Yeah, I understand.
I have like personal files, I have company files, I have financial files in this one big repo. I don't like having shit everywhere. I just want to have everything in one place, and I don't want to have to like CD and open up Claude and use directories. So, like, would I do 200 CloudMD files if my repo was just an app? I don't think so. But I work so differently, I guess. Like I said, like my one repo and the only repo I ever work out of has every app I work on in it, has every file, and I know you've done the same, where it's like everything in my entire life I just threw in the repo.
Like the most
So-
obvious bare bones for you would be like one root agent MD, but every other subfolder is a project. It would need its own to a certain degree,
Mhm.
anyways, right? So
Yep.
now you're already at potentially 12, right?
Yeah.
And then per subfolder in those projects, this is the front
Yeah.
end. Here's what we do. This is the back
Yeah.
end. Here's what we do.
And I did a lot of testing with like really weird things where and this didn't work out, so this is just more of a don't do this story, where I took, there was one directory where I was like, you know what, every file in this directory will be a CloudMD.
That's it.
That's it, yeah. And so the names, what would be the names is basically the folder, and then there's always like a leaf node under it. And I just was curious, like what would the, because it's sort of like if you have a hierarchy that's 3 levels deep, and Claude, for some reason, got to the third node, the third level depth, but didn't have the information from 2 levels higher,
Wouldn't make sense.
it wouldn't make sense. So I've experimented with that. It was a total failure because your context window would just balloon
Yeah,
out.
it has to read every file.
Yeah.
So
The way
that's
that
the whole
the
point of the CloudMD. Like you have to read this.
Yeah.
Also, and how do you ensure that the bottom CloudMD has to reference all the way up? I'm saying.
I use a lot of references in my CloudMDs to keep information. I
Also
usually
up, not down.
I do like readmes for me, and like CloudMDs or CloudMDs or AgentMDs for the LLM. But a lot of the times, I'll just reference the README because I don't want to have duplication of data. I need a single source of truth.
Still use context.md files or not?
I don't know what those are. Never heard of them.
Just like, so let's say you you're moving from one chat to another, but there's a context, rather than let the agent compress it through, keep updating it yourself. So if your chat exceeds over 1 million,
Yeah.
it's going to compress by itself.
Yeah.
Then it'll decide what to keep.
I do intermediary artifacts. I don't call them like context MVs, just like artifact files, which contain context, and I try to keep that context on the file system and not. So you can always go back to it. It's in the LLM, and you need to redo it, and it's not on this. Now you're digging back in sessions to dig that context up. So I always write context along the way if I need to rebuild stuff.
How do you manage scaleness of the context files?
ALS. How do I manage scale? Is that what you asked?
No, context, like,
Yeah, things getting outdated, right?
Yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah, it's a
you're fucked.
Yeah, it's a problem.
We've talked about it
Yeah,
a million
exactly,
times.
exactly.
But like, that's